Welcome to Keeping in Sync with Microsoft 365 for the 3rd of April. Unfortunately, we've missed the April Fool's Day jokes, so all straight content from here. Starting off as always with a disclaimer that sometimes dates may change, as happens quite often, or there may be certain settings in your organization that prohibit you from seeing certain features, or depending even on the organization type. So please don't shoot the messenger if you don't see them. Now, if you've been using Microsoft Loop components in Outlook or Teams, you may have noticed some files in your OneDrive with the .fluid file extension. So these will actually be switching from the .fluid extension to the .loop extension to align with the Microsoft branding, as they used to be called Fluid Framework. The existing files won't be affected and will continue to work. So it's only new files that going forward will have the .loop extension. Just so you're not confused, this change will happen in early to late April. Something very exciting, which is that coming soon, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 will allow you to submit up to 100 emails at once from quarantine to Microsoft for evaluation, so they don't get marked as spam or phishing, if that's the case. So hopefully you're not getting that many emails getting blocked. This is rolling out late April to mid-May. Happy submitting. Now, if you use Power BI a lot, it can sometimes be quite challenging to find workspaces that you regularly access. I personally experience this all the time. This particular new feature will allow you to pin your workspaces to the top of the list and unpin them anytime as needed, just like you can in File Explorer in Windows, as well as Teams chats and channels. This will actually make it a lot easier for you to navigate to workspaces that are most relevant to you without having to search for the workspaces or click the list and scroll through it to find what you're after. This is actually rolling out now through to early April. Now, this particular new feature in SharePoint allows you to create pages and news posts from the SharePoint app bar instead of having to be in the specific site where you want the page to be created. What you'll simply be able to do is click the Create command on the app bar in SharePoint or anywhere in SharePoint and select the option from SharePoint News or SharePoint Page, in addition to SharePoint Sites if that's available, or lists or Office files. When you create the page, it'll ask you, do you want to create it in the current site, a recent site, or the ability to actually search for a site. If only we could do that with documents in Office. One day. This is rolling out early April to mid-May. Now, onto the Teams section of this video, which is most of it, thanks to last week's Enterprise Connect conference, where many things were announced. So the first thing, the big news, is that the new Teams desktop app is available in preview and has big, bold claims such as consuming half the amount of memory and disk space and being much faster to run and doing a lot of things, such as actually switching to other organizations. Now, one of the big features is the ability to add multiple accounts, which is great for many scenarios, such as people who also study and have separate university accounts that they might need to log into, or a lecturer who also exists in another organization as a student. But also people who work for multiple organizations or whatever the scenario. Another big feature is the ability to see what's going on inside of another organization that you're a guest in without actually having to switch. So you can actually turn off those email notifications you get to say, hey, you've missed out on content, and you'll see it up in the little icon, and then can click on it and see how many chats and notifications and at mentions and all those kind of things are in those other tenants. And then when you do switch to them, it is lightning fast, finally. Now, however, it is important to note that there are a lot of missing features from this new preview client. They're expecting to see a lot of those catch-up features coming around June. So you can actually switch back to the classic version at any time, but you can't actually run both at the same time. I do suspect that part of the reason why the Teams client is running so fast is because it's missing so many features. But we'll see what happens in June. Now, this particular preview feature is available now, but only if you're enabled for preview releases in Teams. So speak to your IT department about that. Now, in the world of webinars in Microsoft Teams, you will actually soon be able to customize the email that gets sent out as reminders, as well as actually have those reminders automatically get sent out, as happens in many webinar type platforms. Now, if you're licensed for Microsoft Teams Premium, then you'll actually be able to customize when they go out and also what the content is, whereas the rest of us who are unlicensed for it will just have the generic content go out whenever it is deemed appropriate by the platform. This is rolling out now to the end of April. Now, watermarks in Microsoft Teams is a relatively new feature, which allows you to apply watermarks to video feeds and shared content so that people can't steal your content and repurpose it as their own. Now, to date, admins have had to enable the feature. However, it will actually soon be enabled by default for anybody who is licensed for Teams Premium. This will actually happen from mid to late April. Now, the Teams video clip feature was released last November, which effectively allows you to send a short video message up to 1 minute to people. And now Microsoft is updating the feature with auto-generated caption support to make them more accessible. This is rolling out early to late April. Now, something that's also being added to Microsoft Teams meetings is a new feature which is called the speaker view. Now, this option can actually be selected from the view switcher within meetings by the actual users themselves, so you, when you're watching a meeting, allowing you to effortlessly track the current active speaker. And the speaker view is actually particularly effective in scenarios where there's a limited number of key speakers and a large audience, such as town hall meetings, as our American friends call them, or trainings or lectures, especially from a student's perspective. So you don't have to wait for somebody else to mark somebody as a speaker. This will actually automatically change for you. This is rolling out early April to mid-May. Now, if you've ever wondered what the Teams button is for on your headset or speakerphone, if you have one, or if you're using something that isn't actually certified for Microsoft Teams and you want to get a proper headset, now there's even more reason to. Now, one of the things that will happen with that button is after you receive a meeting start notification, and you can then press the Teams button on your headset to bring up the meeting pre-join screen. And this is actually going to be automatically available for any Teams certified device. You'll also be able to bring up the actual meeting screen, or meeting stage as it's called, to the foreground by pressing the Teams button during a meeting, even if it was hidden behind other windows, because you know you weren't paying attention and doing other things. So you can rapidly bring it back up and go, yes, I was paying attention to that point on the slide. So both of these features are rolling out early to late April, but only if you have a Teams certified device and aren't using AirPods, cheap Woolies earplugs, or anything else. Now, avatars in Microsoft Teams was touted last year, or before that, I can't remember, but it effectively gives you a, much needed camera break while still allowing you to collaborate effectively, they say. Now, what this effectively does is creates an avatar of you, and it creates a layer of choice as to how you are presented in meetings. So whether you look at my gorgeous face or an avatar version of me, which means I can customize myself with a rad hat and maybe be a little bit thinner, those kind of things. Now, it is also important to note that there is an avatar designer where you can create and customize your appearance, and there are a ton of reaction options. Unfortunately, way too many in my opinion, because there's things like the dab and Mexican wave and all these other things that just really aren't needed. So this is rolling out early April to late May, so expect your meeting effectiveness to reduce while people play around with the new options. Now, for events such as personal appointments, lunch break slots in your calendar, and in-person meetings, you can actually now create an actual appointment in Teams calendar by turning off the online toggle for a meeting. So something we've been able to do in Outlook for years, now we can actually do in Teams instead of having to make it a Teams meeting. So by default, any meeting created in Teams in the calendar app is an online meeting. So this toggle will simply allow you to turn it off and make it a regular meeting, like an in-person one, or just for yourself. And because of the fact that usually a Teams meeting comes with a whole bunch of things like a chat and whiteboard and all these other artifacts. These offline meetings won't actually have any of those artifacts. This is rolling out in late May. Now, off Teams finally. Viva Engage will soon have improved @mentioning behavior available, which is that you'll be able to @mention someone simply by using their first name or their last name instead of having to type the full name as we've become accustomed to. This change will be available on the web and on mobile and is rolling out mid to late April. Now, do you ever look at a colleague and think to yourself, why do you work here? Well, now Viva Topics helps answer some of those questions by showing you what topics that person is an expert in. When you select someone's name or picture in Outlook or Office web apps, including SharePoint, like the SharePoint web part where you can see a person hover over them, you'll actually be able to find that information on their profile card using Viva Topics. So that will actually integrate in. So if I'm tagged as an expert in, I don't know, Viva Topics, then when you hover over me, you'll see Viva Topics. Now, unfortunately, this is only for people who are licensed with Viva Topics. This is rolling out early to late April. Now, also on that, Microsoft Feed will show a Viva Topic pill, or basically a little kind of little icon, little visual, when it's relevant for SharePoint content in the Microsoft Feed in the Edge browser and other places. This will allow you to easily learn more about that particular topic just by clicking on it. But again, only if you're licensed for Viva Topics, and no, there is no accident here. There is no screenshot, and I could not find one or make one myself. So unfortunately, blank screen to finish out the day. This is rolling out early to mid-April, but again, only for people licensed with Viva Topics. And that's it for an incredibly long episode, I apologize, of Keeping in Sync with Microsoft 365.